What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Board Games Are For Everybody. Today we are taking a look at Trial by Trolley, a party game of moral dilemmas and trolley murder. This was a card game made by Cyanide and Happiness. I think it came out only a couple years ago, maybe 2019, 2020. I'm so used to there being dates on boxes. Is that not something they do anymore? They don't put dates on boxes anymore? This is basically just a pretty simple card game. It's a party game. It is made for at least 3 players, which is definitely fair. I don't think you'd be able to play it with 2 players. However, if anyone has thought up a 2-player variant, let me know, because I would love to know a 2-player variant. We don't usually have more than 2 people to play games with, so a 2-player variant would be great. We have tried to play the game as a 2-player variant, just trying to make our case for each side. However, it never really quite works out as planned. We have, however, recently played this game with some people, and it was a pretty good time. I think everyone had a good time with it. It was pretty fun, and we're going to go over how the game works. So there are 3 different decks of cards. We have the good deck, represented by the Cyanide and Happiness character there with the halo and the goofy face. We have the bad cards, the evil cards, represented by the grinning devil there. And then we've also got these guys here, which are modifier cards, which can be used to modify different cards that end up on the track. Which, speaking of the track, is unfortunately just a piece of paper. I really wish this was an actual board, but it's just a piece of paper, unfortunately. So the way the game works is that it is a team-based game. It's supposed to be a team-based game. We typically make it a solo game so that more cards end up down, but we will explain it as the rules explain it. So first thing to happen is that the first player to be the conductor, according to the rules, the first player to be the conductor is the last person who thought about murdering folks. That is the exact terminology in the instructions. The last person who thought about murdering folks gets to be the conductor first. So let's say we have our 3 people. We have one person here, one person here, one person here. Let's say our person up at the top is the conductor first. They are going to have to be determining between our person on the right here and us, which of these tracks is going to be run over by the trolley. Now, the way that the game works is that each player who is currently in the game will be dealt 3 of each card, and they will be playing 1 card at certain times in order to modify the track to try and sway the conductor to run over the opponent's track instead of theirs. So now that all of these are kind of aligned, let's actually just spread these out so it's a little easier to pick them up here. So to start each round, after all the cards have been dealt out, you place 1 of the good cards on each of the tracks. Players would decide which track they are. Let's say that we are the bottom track and the player to our right here is the top track. So they're trying to convince the conductor to run over our side of the track. And we are trying to convince the conductor to run over their side of the track, because if our side of the track is run over, we gain 1 of these little death tokens here. And at the end of the game, whoever has the least amount of death tokens wins. So you want to not have your track that your cards are on run over, so you don't accumulate points. So to start, each player would play 1 of their good cards onto their track. So our track is currently the bottom. So our current track already has a time traveler coming to warn us of grave danger. So we have a time traveler who is coming to tell us something terrible is coming in the future. And I think that's a pretty beneficial thing to not run over. But our opponent has your grandma. Are you sure you don't want more to eat, honey? So, I mean, depending on who your conductor is, that's a pretty tough one, right? So, on our first turn, we select one of our good cards to try and increase our chances of not having our side run over. So let's see what we got. We've got a friendly talking dinosaur, sorry. We've got yourself from 10 years in the future. Now yourself referring to the conductor. So the conductor from 10 years in the future. Or the fountain of youth, if you want to be forever youthful. So I think what we're going to go with is we're going to go with yourself from the future. Now, you only play one of these cards per turn. So once you are done placing your one card down, you can just create a discard pile for the rest of the cards. So now the next player would play from their hand. They currently have your grandma on their track. So the conductor is struggling with running over their grandmother currently. And let's see what other good cards they have. They have the world's greatest chef. So if they really like food, maybe that would be a beneficial thing. All the children you will ever have. Or a crew filming a live episode of a beloved children's TV show. That's obviously definitely not Barney. Definitely not Barney. Now, a lot of the people I know probably wouldn't care about this, which is a little sad, but also a little funny because, I mean, yeah, I probably wouldn't care if Barney got run over too, but we're also talking about all these kids and these crew members who, for some reason, are on a train track recording a TV episode. So I think what we're going to go with on the top is all the children you will ever have. So now that those two have been placed, we go back to the first player, and we're now going to be playing one of our bad cards. However, this time we're going to be placing it on our opponent's side to try and sway the judge to run their side over. So our evil cards, we have an undead Osama bin Laden. We have an old-timey outlaw with a bounty on their head. Or we have that friend who spoils every movie and TV show for you. And I mean, you know, as much as annoying as that friend is who spoils all those TV shows for you, the obvious pick would probably be an undead Osama bin Laden that we would put onto our opponent's side to try and sway the conductor into running over their side instead of ours. Now, let's see what our opponent has. We've got a traffic officer in the middle of writing you a ticket. We've got an evil witch that steals and eats children. And we have all records of your financial debt. So if it's someone who's in debt, maybe you can pull at their heartstrings by playing that card there and try and get that debt taken care of for good. They would probably play an evil witch that steals and eats children, because that would be a pretty good reason to run that person over. And obviously, as you see, those children aren't on the track. However, the witch is on the track. And finally, we would move on to our modifier cards. These are cards that can be placed on any of the cards that are currently on the tracks to try and either give yourself a bit of a benefit or to give your opponent a detriment to further try and convince the conductor to run them over. So the modifiers we have is spreading really nasty rumors about you. We have is the only caretaker of their aging parents. And we have is secretly the kingpin calling the shots for the entire Russian mafia. Now, I think what we would probably go with here, just to be a little funny, you know, our opponent has their grandma on the track, but their grandma's been spreading some pretty nasty rumors about them. So that may sway them to want to run their grandma over, you know? And then our opponent would do the same thing, coming after us or trying to make sure that their side gains a bit of a boost. So we have unironically voted for Harambe the gorilla in the 2016 US presidential election. Obviously, this is an American made game, so me being a Canadian, I don't understand everything. However, this was a big meme thing, so I definitely do understand this. That is something that I remember happening. We have only speaks in dad jokes. And we have Batman will bring their killer to justice. So this would be a pretty good one because we could do it like, I mean, they already have themselves from the future. So if they run themselves from the future over, then they never would have existed. Oh no, wait, that's backwards. That would have to be them from the past. I guess them from the future isn't that big of a deal, huh? But we'll have that if this time traveler is killed, that Batman will bring his killer to justice, being the conductor. Now, I don't know how much of a threat that actually is, since we all know that Batman just throws people in jail and doesn't kill them. So you would just end up in jail, I guess. But that is how the game works. So at this point, that would be the end of the round. And the conductor would now have to make their choice on which side they were going to run over. Now, obviously, on the top, we have your grandma who is spreading really nasty rumors about you. We have all the children you'll ever have. And we have undead Osama bin Laden. On the bottom, we have a time traveler coming to warn us of grave danger, but Batman will bring their killer to justice. We have the conductor from the future, 10 years in the future, and we have an evil witch that steals and eats children. Now, this is the point of the game. This is the moral dilemma. Each team is going to try and convince the conductor why the opposing side should be run over. Now, the conductor would take their token, whichever side they decide to run over. They would place the token down to signify that's the side that is being run over. And then whoever was the side that got run over, like I said before, would just gain one of these death tokens. If I can get it out of the bag, would gain one of these death tokens that they would just keep in front of them until the end of the game. All the cards would be brought back up and placed back into the discards here, and a new round would start anew with the next player taking possession of the conductor role. The game goes on until each player has played as the conductor once, so 3 rounds or so. However, when we played it, we actually had everyone play as the conductor once, so we did about 5 rounds, I think. And we also actually had more cards in the middle because everyone played one of each card. So the middle had like 8, or each track had like 8 cards on it that the conductor had to try and figure out how to solve. But yeah, that is more or less Trial by Trolley. You keep doing that process until you decide the end of the game. At the end of the game, whoever has the least amount of skull tokens ends up being the winner because they did not have their train track goers run over the most. And that is pretty much how the game works. I actually think that the game's pretty fun. It's definitely, it's a party game. It's kind of like a Cards Against Humanity or an Apples to Apples kind of thing. Definitely something bigger groups is good for, but I think you can still have a good time even just with a few people. I think it suffers the same kind of detriments that games like Cards Against Humanity and Apples to Apples suffer, that being that once you play the game enough, you're just going to end up, with the same cards. You're going to end up with the same combinations. However, the people that you play with can always change up how the game works, because if you're playing with different people, everyone has different biases and thought processes on running people over, I guess, what the criteria for running over a certain track would be. So playing with different people is definitely a way to keep the game fresh. But I do think it's a fun game. I think it's pretty entertaining. That is pretty much all I got for Trial by Trolley, though. That is how the game works. That's how it works. That's all I got. That's how it works. So thank you guys very much for stopping by. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you guys have played Trial by Trolley, let me know what you think about it down below. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? What are the reasons for liking or disliking it? Has this video made you want to try the game out, find a friend who has it, or maybe try and play it online? I do know it's set up on Tabletop Simulator, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, if you guys have played it, let me know what you think down in the comments, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you will join me next time, but until then, just remember that board games are for everybody, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.